Let's delve back in, shall we, to that Kylian Mbappe interview.
We are doing it.
I don't know what PSG are missing. You have to talk to the people who make the team, who organise the workforce, who build this club. I just tried to do my best. Unfortunately, I got injured before the first leg against Bayern. In the return leg, we were powerless. But in the group stage, it seems to me that I was the most decisive player. I could do better by my standards. Even the other players gave them all. It's nice to mention them. Sometimes in football, you face what is called a glass ceiling. That's why it's not too much of a question for me, but more for above. Let's talk about Leonardo, shall we? Responded. He is, of course, the former sporting director. He said PSG existed before Kylian Mbappe and it will exist after him. He's been in Paris for 6 years, and in those 6 years, 5 different clubs have won the Champions League. This means that it's entirely possible to win this competition without him. With his behaviour over the past 2 years, Mbappe shows that he's not yet a player capable of really guiding a team. He's a great player, not a leader. He's a great goal scorer, but not a creative player, so it's hard to build a team around him. For the good of PSG, I think the time has come for Mbappe to leave, no matter how. Jules, hello. What would you like to say?
I was wondering if you had a question or something.
I don't really. I've run out of Mbappe
if I'm freestyling. The thing about Leonardo, let's not forget that Leonardo and Kylian and the Kylian Mbappe clan, entourage, never really got on. And as soon as Kylian signed a new deal a year ago, or let's say, in May last year, then one of the first things that they did is that to get rid of Leonardo, to put Luis Campos as the sporting director. So let's not kid ourselves here. There's just no lost feelings between, is that what you said, between Leonardo and Kylian Mbappe. They just don't like each other. They don't get on at all. So in a way, reading those quotes from Leonardo is not surprising. Is he completely objective? Is he a bit biased because of the poor relationship that he's had with the Mbappe family? Probably. Is he saying the truth? Probably as well. There's a bit of truth in all of this. But let's not forget that he is also saying it because he doesn't like the Mbappe families. But I mean, I think of course, what Kylian said in France Football, which we mentioned on Saturday, especially that little dig at the people above him, but also the rest of the squad, as you said, Dan, kind of him to mention them. But when he does mention them, it's not in the nicest way. Like, I did all my best and I could have done better. Okay, but I've scored 54 goals, through the whole season in 54 games. I did my bit, but yet we still could not do it. And there's this glass ceiling. By the way, let's not forget that not that long ago in the Champions League final, when he was still 0-0 against Bayern Munich, he had a chance. He had the biggest chance of the game. Even bigger one than the one that Kingsley Coman scored as the winning goal for Bayern Munich. And Kylian missed it. And that was still 0-0, and that was just before the break. Had he scored that one, maybe the whole end of the game would have been different. And right now, he would have a Champions League with PSG. So for him to talk about glass ceiling, which is basically what he means is like, PSG can't go higher. They can't bring me, or I can't bring them higher up than what we did this season, is not true. That's why this interview has obviously been very controversial in Paris, as we mentioned on Saturday.
You mentioned, obviously, Leonardo doesn't get on with him. Al Khalifa doesn't get on with him anymore. His teammates don't get on with him. Who gets on with him at all, Jules? Who's his friend?
I am. Thank you very much. I'm here still in the...
Oh, dear
I'm
me.
Kidding. I'm kidding. It's a good question, though. It's a really good question. I mean, it's difficult. So some of the players not happy. Some were not too happy by the interview overall. It's not that big a deal, I think. On Monday, as we said before, he's going to come back to the brand new training grounds, and let's see how the atmosphere is there. If it's a bit cold, if it's not so much. What the first meeting is with Luis Enrique, a bit like what Kane and Postecoglou are going to do when they first meet together. It will be the same between Luis Enrique and Mbappe. And we will know a bit more by next week, maybe midweek next week, what the kind of vibe is at the training ground, and around him as well, what kind of mindset he's in and what kind of mindset the whole club is in. But right now, you're right. It looks pretty negative, to be fair.
Jan, you haven't been on for a while. What would you like to say?
I'm just saying that sometimes Mbappe is the nicest kid around, and then sometimes it's just not the nicest way around. And sometimes I feel and Jules would probably maybe know this better. Sometimes he got to have a spin doctor, because all these sentences he comes up, they look so constructed. It looks like they've thought it through. Now you have to find your position. This is the way you have to do that. I thought for 1 year that he would go to Real Madrid this summer. I still believe that can happen, and I see he's building up to that. But Mbappe, I mean, I think it's so funny when players at PSG, they're crying, oh, poor us, oh, I can't believe Mbappe said this. I mean, grow up. I mean, you play with a superstar, they say stupid things then and again. It's a part of the game.
Top 10 strikers: Haaland, Benzema, Kane, Osimhen, Lewandowski, Jesus, Muani, Isak. Did you vote for that, Shan? Vajovic and Jonathan David as well makes it in to the top 10. And Jules, I sent you to bed, but you were like, no, I want to talk more about the FC 100 strikers. So please, keep me here. Thank you very much for your professionalism and dedication to this topic, Jules.
It's a pleasure, always, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, this was an easy one, I think, in a sense. But there's really interesting things to talk about. I mean, the top 5, I think we can all agree. You can maybe switch 1 or 2 of the places, but I think Lewandowski, Osimhen, Kane, Benzema, Haaland, not just on last season, but on the previous seasons, what they've achieved, what they're doing, the talent, everything. Because let's not forget Gab's rules and criteria. It's not just what happened last season. What's interesting is you've got a lot of young players too in that top 10. Haaland is obviously 22, you've got Isak 23, Jonathan David 23, Vlahovic as well, Osimhen is 24, Colomwani is 24. There's still a big gap, it feels, between the top 5 and then 6 to 10. Really, Colomwani, Gabriel Jesus, they're not on the level of the top 5. David either. Vlahovic had a bad season with Juventus, plenty of potential. So there's clearly the potential, the one who've achieved a lot already, and this disparity and variety in ages, which I think is very interesting too.
Jan, are you happy with that top 10?
Not a bad list. Great strikers in there. I have a soft spot for Vlahovic. I think that he got enormous potential. I agree with Jules that the top 5, maybe Kane, based on last season, can be ahead of Benzema. I couldn't say that loud because there is a Frenchman in the studio, of course, but maybe those kind of things. But Vlahovic, I think that, yes, he didn't have his best season last season, but I think the potential is there. I think he got an enormous pundus. He's on the pitch. He's there. He can turn into one of the best. I am a bit surprised that he's not at the top of some of the Manchester Uniteds or the Chelsea or Bayern Munich, if that is the most realistic striker they can get in this market. So maybe Vlahovic up there, but I'm happy with that. And after I got that list, I also had a look again at David. I mean, he had a fantastic season this season, involved in so many goals. So I'm happy with that list. It's a great list.
Ali, you were away when all this was announced, touring around Europe and all that stuff.
Yeah, thinking about strikers.
Oh, yeah, just thinking, yes.
Picturing strikers.
You're happy with that list?
I am happy with the top 5, but I think what's interesting, at least from my perspective, is that there's a top 5, and I think there's a significant gap between that top 5 and then what comes after. I would say that Colomwani probably needs to be a little bit higher above Gabriel Jesus, but regardless, you have the top 5 and then the rest. The gap, I think, between what the guys in the top 5 and the rest have done, I think is significant enough to where there's a little bit of a drop-off.
Jules, I think it's official. You can now go to bed. Unless there's any Mbappe breaking news. Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.